Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. As part of the ongoing CKey Saves Lives campaign by CKey UK, we're doing interviews up and down the country, and today we've got an interview with Bhupinder Singh, aka Tubsy. So if you just want to do a quick intro about yourself.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Like we just said, my name is Bhupinder Singh, also known as Tubsy. I am what you call a recovering alcoholic. I'm here today as part of CKey Saves Lives with CKey UK, and I think we're going to be answering some of the most common questions, some of the dilemmas, some of the queries, and some of the galtfehmiya, some of the the misconceptions that people have about addiction, and in my case especially alcohol addiction.
Okay, so the first question, what is addiction in your own words?
Addiction, I've come to know, is an illness. It's when the body is not in control and the mind is not in control, and especially the soul is not in control. You become dependent on something that has a hold over you, something that takes control over your thoughts, your actions. It takes control over everything. It takes control over your whole existence. Addiction can be beaten. I'm sitting here as living proof that it can be beaten, but to beat addiction, you need something bigger than addiction, something more powerful. You need, and as we know, the most powerful thing in our lives is Gurbani, is spirituality. So that is how addiction can be beaten. But I've just explained to you addiction in a very short form. Addiction, in my own experience, is the worst thing that can happen to anybody. We'll have all seen pictures and movies where people are shaking and sweating, and we've all heard the term cold turkey. Trust me, it is the most horrific experience anybody can go through.
Do you think the Punjabi Sikh community have massive issues with addiction?
The Punjabi Sikh community does have a big issue with addiction. That's not to say that other communities don't. But we're here for our community, and yes, we do have an issue. We have an issue with alcohol addiction, where it's socially acceptable, for our predominantly men to consume alcohol and to consume large amounts of alcohol. And this obviously leads to people getting into excessive amounts and then becoming dependent. So yes, we do have an issue, but we have a greater issue where, like I used the words socially acceptable, where we, not so much nowadays, but in the past, where it was like if you didn't drink so much, or if you didn't act in a certain way, then you were somehow less than somebody else, or you were inferior, or you weren't as macho. Thankfully, the Nami Pidi, the new generation, with the education that's coming from CKey UK and some other organisations like this, and with the new generation being inspired to come to the Guru Garden more, that trend is now going away. It's not completely gone, so we need to concentrate on it, but thankfully that is going away. That whole idolization, that whole glamorization of such substances is now becoming less and less. But nevertheless, we do have, within our community, we do have an issue.
What have you personally experienced?
Personally, like I mentioned, I'm what we call a recovering alcoholic. So in the past, I was addicted to alcohol. I was totally dependent on alcohol. Every waking moment of my life, I was under the influence of alcohol. I was either drinking or looking for drink, and that was my whole existence. I didn't care about family, friends, work, money. The only time I cared about money was when I needed to pay for a drink. Other than that, my sole purpose in life was to drink. I didn't care about anything else. And not so much looking back on it now, but at the time, I wasn't happy at all. People think that, oh, you know, people drink and they laugh and they're merry. I myself was like that on the outside, but on the inside, I was very lonely. I was very sad. I had nowhere to turn to. I had nowhere to go for help, and I really wanted to get out of that vicious circle because, like I said about addiction, it had a total hold over me. It had total control over everything I did. I wanted to do good things, but it just had me all over. It had total. It was like being in chains and tied from head to toe. It had me completely. So yes, that was my personal experience of being totally helpless and, you know, desperate.
When was the last time you drank, and how was that experience?
The last time I drank was the 11th of November 1998, which was also coincidentally my wedding day. I went through a couple of experiences before that. I was bitten by a snake, so I was already quite ill anyway. But it came to me that, you know, I was doing too much damage. When I was on my own, I was punishing myself, or it was just me that was involved in the hurt, and my family, my dad, my brothers, my sisters. But now I was involving a whole new group of people. You know, my wife hadn't done anything wrong, my in-laws hadn't done anything wrong, but by me getting married and still carrying on that path, a voice came, and there's only one place a voice comes from. A voice came from up there and said that, you know, this isn't right. What you're doing is unjust. What you're doing isn't fair, and you've got to stop this. And you know, and that's where I started to make a turnaround.
How did your addiction affect your family?
My family, first of all, I've got to say I'm very, very grateful for the family that I've been born into. My Guru has given me an amazing family, in the fact that I gave them absolute hell. I stole, I lied, I did everything you could think of under the sun just for alcohol off my family. But they never turned their backs on me. Yes, they were always angry. You know, we had a lot of exchanges, both verbal and physical. But when it came to the crunch, my family stood by me, and you know, they didn't give up. They knew that deep inside there is a human being inside that addict, inside that sharabi that's doing all these wrong things and saying all these horrible things. I was still their flesh and blood, and they knew that they could bring that person out, and that is a very, very important message to everybody. You know, family is the strongest unit in the world. It is the most close-knit unit in the world, and there is nobody in the world that will do for you what your family will do. And I can honestly say that I have friends that are still addicts, that used to drink with me then, that are still in a very bad way. And the biggest difference is their families disown them. They turn their backs. Some of these people are living in homes, some of these people are living in shelters, some of these people are on the streets. And it's primarily because their own brothers and sisters said, sorry, we've had enough, we can't help you. But my brothers and sisters didn't do that, and especially my dad didn't do that. Not to say that it was easy for them, and not to say that they didn't, you know, throw in the towel every now and then. But when it came to the crunch, they were behind me, and they wanted me to come off the addiction. They wanted me to succeed. They wanted me to come on the right path. And they did it. They succeeded.
Do you think in the Punjabi Sikh community it's just the males that have an issue, or do the females have one as well?
I think it's always been a male and female problem, whereas back in my day it was more hush hush, which, looking at it in hindsight, probably made it worse, because the more something is hidden and done in secret, the worse it can get. It was like my drinking was always done in secret because my dad didn't allow it, and the more I drank in secret, the more I drank. There was no limit. There wasn't any sort of boundaries. So although women and girls are now drinking more in the open, there's two sides to that story. Obviously, we don't abdicate it. We don't promote it. We don't promote men drinking either. I can't sit here and say, okay, it's okay for men and it's not okay for women. I don't think it's okay for either. But at the same time, it's each to their own. But because the girls and women are drinking more now, the problems, the addictions are coming more to light, which again, like I said, has two sides to that story, which means that, okay, if they're coming to light, then we can help them and we can deal with it, and we can then use that as an example to others to say that, look, this is actually what it does to you. Yes, it might look good at the time and you might be fitting in with a certain crowd and everything else, but this is actually the outcome. So, like I said, there's two sides to that story, although we can't sit here and promote it and everything else, but a problem, if it comes to light, then it can be dealt with.
What dangers do you think are out there for like young Punjabi Sikh families? They're going to send their children to college and university. What dangers face those students ahead within addiction?
I think the biggest danger is that their parents won't give them the right education. The parents won't give them the right training. The parents won't have had this sort of side of the story where they sit their children down and say, actually, we know we're sending you away. We know that you're going away to university and college and whatever else, and we're not going to be there. So there's going to be nobody there to wait for you at the end of the night to see in what state that you've come home in. But if you do come home in this sort of state, and if you do start doing this, this and this, well, these are the outcomes, right? And then physically show them, show them what Sikh youth are talking about. So show them, websites, Facebook pages, everything else. There's so much literature out there. There is so much pictorial evidence to say that, look, these are the eventualities that can happen. That is the biggest danger. The biggest danger is to say, chalo ji changa ji, mera munda padh chalya, meri kudi padh chalya, and it's all hunky-dory. But sit your children down, talk to them, take time out, be with them, be their friends, be their mentors, be their parents. Don't just send them off and to deal with the big bad world on their own. That is the worst thing you can do.
What do you think when you hear the CKey Saves Lives slogan?
Truthfully, I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting here. I think it's fantastic, because like I mentioned a few minutes ago, when I was in addiction, I was very lonely. I was very desperate. I was desperate because I had nowhere to go. I had nowhere to turn to. My own community didn't know what I was talking about. My own community thought he's bad, he's possessed by the devil, and all of these other obscene, silly things. Instead of be able to go to my own community, my own Sikh community, and say, look, I need help. I was ostracized. I was further pushed away, and the further I was pushed away, the worse I was getting. I didn't want to go to anybody else. When you've got a problem, you look within. So even though thankfully I was able to find help, and you know, I went round the long way, it would have been so much nicer, so much easier if I could turn to my own community and my own faith and say, look, is there anybody that can help me? Is there anybody that can understand? And, you know, thankfully there is that help available within our own faith, within our own community, without anybody pointing any fingers, without anybody judging you, without anybody, you know, telling you that you're stupid or telling you that how bad you've been or that you're a sinner or anything like that. There isn't anything like that anymore. We as a community, we as a faith, we're progressing. We have progressed a lot. We've come a long way. And now I think it's fantastic that, you know, people, kids, the next generation, even the older generation, they can come in and they can talk to us in English, they can talk to us in Punjabi, there's literature available, and everything's there, you know, and it can be anonymous, it can be however you want it to be. So CKey Saves Lives is exactly what it says.
What do you think about being part of the Sikh Youth UK team, doing voluntary work to help others in this situation?
In this situation, I mean, first of all, being a part of Sikh Youth UK is fantastic. It's like what I just said. You know, being able to help somebody coming within our own faith, our own community, in our own language, within our own culture. It's, you know, it's amazing. I'm so lucky because I'm able to give back to a community, to a faith that's given me so much, that's given me my life back. So to be able to give back to something like that, I think, you know, I'm very bagama that I've been given this opportunity. So, you know, I think I'm very lucky.
How important is it to, now you're obviously recovering it and you've come out the other end and you're helping others, how important is it to keep your morals and values, you know, to let the people in the Sangat and the audience realise how important your morals and values are?
To come off addiction and to beat addiction, like I said in the very first, you have to get hold of something that's more powerful, something that's, you know, the most powerful thing we know, as I said, was Gurbani. And you can't just say that, okay, I'm going to come to the Gurdwara every Sunday, spend about half an hour, and that's it. You know, I've done my bit. You have to follow the set of ethics. You have to follow the set of principles. You have to follow the guidelines. It's all there. You don't have to go anywhere else. You know, now you don't even have, nobody's got the excuse that I can't understand. The translations are available. The translations are now available and broken down into simple Punjabi, simple English. I'm not saying that you have to become religious or anything else, but all I am saying is that morals, simple morals, like telling the truth, helping people, doing good deeds, these are very simple things that everybody can do. And you know, one of the biggest morals is gratitude. Being grateful for what you have and being grateful for what you can achieve now that you've found sobriety or you've found a way of sobriety. These are very, very simple things you can do. I know when people hear the word morals, they think that they can, you know, you have to, you know, go through a whole assault course. It's not like that. Just simple things that, you know, you'd expect somebody else to do for you. You know, you wouldn't expect to be lied to, you wouldn't be expect to be cheated on, you know, you wouldn't be expected to be wronged. So that's all we mean by morals, is just become a better human being.
Within the CKey Saves Lives campaign, there is a Sikh ethos-based program, which includes day-to-day stuff, which is like the morals and values and some of the stuff we've been talking about. But how important is using Seva, Simran and Sangat on your journey?
It is the most important, whichever community you look at. Now, we're very lucky that we're within the Sikh community and the Sikh faith, and these principles come naturally to us. They come second nature. but even in other communities, especially when it comes to addictive behaviour, seva, what they call in English service, is most important. Because it nurtures you and it brings nimrata to you. It takes away your ego. So ego is one of the biggest enemies that addicts have. And Simran, other communities will call it meditation. Being at one with yourself and being at one with your creator. And that's when you'll find inner peace. When you find inner peace, you won't need any other outer intoxication or any outer, liquor or any other substance. So these principles in everyday life are just like the morals. And it, again, like I said, it's second nature to us. If we actually sat down and looked within, we could practice all of this subconsciously. We wouldn't even have to think about it.
I was going to ask you a question, what was your lowest point? But I'd rather do that where you can answer that within this last question, which is, I just want you to do your testimony and tell the Sangat about your journey from start to the finish.
Okay, it is a pretty long journey. It starts basically at home, where alcohol was at home. It was always there when people are coming into the house and visiting. I'm going back to the early 70s where somebody or other would be around every weekend, and I saw these people drinking, and I just wanted to give it a go. And I remember my first drink, I can still remember it, and I remember liking the taste, and it progressed from there. I just became associated with it. As I was growing up, we went to school, I just introduced alcohol as part of my personality. Alcohol and Tubsy always seemed to go hand in hand, and I became very egoistic about it. I'm Punjabi and all Punjabis drink, and I've always got a bottle in my bag and everything else. I was very lucky that I belonged to a musical family, and I was able to play a musical instrument, and I came onto the music scene. And even there, everybody's got this misconception that all musicians and singers drink. Well, the other lads didn't drink like I did. I was always on it, and again, it always became associated with me, to the point where I was drunk on stage. They used to have to carry me off, carry me home, all sorts of things, and I couldn't see it. I couldn't see the destruction I was doing to myself, until it got too late. And not only could I not see it, but other people couldn't see it, because, like I said before, there was a certain amount of glamorization about it. Everybody's like, there was a film in those days by Jackie Chan called The Drunken Master. I got that label. I was called the Drunken Donkey Master, and it became a joke. It became a label, and until it got to a problem where, when it got too much, then all of a sudden nobody wanted to know. Nobody wanted to be with me. Nobody wanted to be my friend, because I was always drunk and I was always a liability. And that's when I became a hermit. By which I mean I would just stay at home. I'd only go out to go and buy a drink, then come sneak it back in past my dad, and then just stay at home, drink, go out, come back, just stay at home and drink. And I became a recluse, and I just it became really, really horrible. I didn't care about my appearance. I didn't care about anybody, anything, just about alcohol. And the destruction started. I destroyed people's lives. And so on and so forth. Until I got married. My parents arranged my marriage in India, thinking that would sort me out. And luckily, straight after I got married, something dawned on me that I couldn't do this to anybody else. It had to stop. But you know, I'm telling you all of this in short form. It was a very dull and gloomy life. It was a very lonely life. It was a very sad life. I went out and I pretended that I was always laughing and joking, whereas deep inside I was hurting, I was cut up, I was confused, I couldn't understand. I think the longest I went the once was 3 months. I'd been in and out of hospital in Birmingham. It's called City Hospital now, it's called Dudley Road Hospital in those days. I was in hospital every 2 months for at least 2 weeks at a time. I used to have something called pancreatitis, and for those who know about pancreatitis, it is very, very, very painful. And for those 2 weeks that I'd be in hospital, I'd be off the drink, I'd come out and I'd look really fresh and I'd feel really good. But usually within a day or two or a week or so, I'd be back on the alcohol, and I couldn't understand it. I couldn't work out why I couldn't give this thing up. I mean, the longest I stayed off it was 3 months. And even then, after 3 months, I thought, you know what, I deserve a drink for that. You know, I've done really well, I deserve a drink. And of course, I went straight back onto it. So it was a life of bewilderment and loneliness, like I said, resentment. You know, I didn't like anybody, I thought everybody was out to get me. You know, so mentally I wasn't functioning properly at all. The one love of my life was my music. I'd lost that because nobody wanted to take me. I was too much of a liability. I couldn't play anywhere. I was always too drunk to play. And respect. I'd lost all respect with everybody. You know, whether it was friends, family, the public. You know, I became a laughing stock. You know, and so it was a life that I wouldn't wish on anybody. But again, as part of my recovery and my addiction, I have to be grateful, because if I didn't see that darkness, then I wouldn't see the light that I see today, and that's very important. I've been very lucky. God's been very good to me, and I've seen the other side, and I'm here to tell the tale. And it's very important that I don't turn around and say, oh, bad things about those days, because those days have taught me what I know now, and it's a very important message to those people that are falling down this slippery slope. There is light at the end of that tunnel, and you know, Sikh Youth UK are here to help you find it.
Well, thank you for your time today, helping the Sangha aware of the dangers that are out there with alcohol and drug addiction. You know, with the little questions we've asked, hopefully it can prevent somebody, even save one person out there. We've done our duty as Sikhs, and as the campaign, hopefully other people will come forward and speak out just like you have. We really appreciate your time and efforts, Baji. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.